Welcome back to the Consulis channel. I'm your host Dinosaur11, and today is going to be an interesting video. It is a Chani strategy guide. I'm going to be joined by a guest, Boboblaw, and Boboblaw has quite the resume when you talk about Dune. Let's take a look at a quick example of what he's accomplished. So in during the third Mr. Beast in Dune Imperium Invitational, he was actually the champion of the tournament, where he was able to beat, not able to, but he beat me in the final table, and took him a big check. Then also during a Muad'Dib melee, I believe in March, he was the winner of that too. Then in terms of hidden assets contests, he's also shined there. He won the Stoneburner runner-up final, so effectively getting fifth in the game, or in the tournament, which is obviously insane. And then finally, he also is very good at just Dune Imperium because he won at Gen Con. And Gen Con was also Dune Imperium Uprising with Bloodlines. And this just goes to show you, like, he is probably one of the best players out there in terms of Dune Imperium Uprising, especially with Bloodlines, because the hidden assets channel, that one I believe was just a base uprising. Then there was the Dune Imperium Invitational, that was Bloodlines involved. Then there was Muad'Dib Melee, which was, I believe, Bloodlines involved. And then there was also Gen Con, which is also Bloodlines involved. So he is quite an expert at this game. So he's going to be helping us, go through what Chani does. So yeah, we'll get right into it. So let's start with what Chani does for like a base. So Chani has the ability called Tactician, right? Whenever you retreat or lose any number of troops from the conflict, advance your tactics token that many spaces, earning you rewards as you reach them. So once you hit the third track, because assuming we're playing on a 4-player game, you lose 3 troops in the combat, then you get another spice. Once you lose 8 troops, then you get a water. One thing about the Chani token is that it does not overflow. So once you hit the end of the water track, say your token, I don't even know. Let's just take this. Let's just take, say it's like say you're starting here, right? And you're at like the 6th tier, and you have 3 troops in the combat. You don't get to go 1, 2, and then you start again 3. You stay exactly where you are. So after the 2 troops, once the combat resolves, then you get to move your track back to the start, right? There are some cases where you can end up here and then retreat a couple of troops, then end up here, and then you restart, so that once the combat resolves, you get combat troops, 1, 2, 3, or whatever, how many else you lose. But yeah, this guide is going to get you through, what cards you should buy, what opening lines you should be looking at, what text, commander skills, contracts. It will teach you everything you need to know about Chani. And I'm going to be with Boboblaw, who is, one of the best players of Dune Imperium Uprising. So let's get into it. Bob, do you want to start us off with position? Specifically, what is the best position for Chani?
I like to think that second position is the best, usually because if you want to go for this like 2 Fremen influence early, you can do like a combination of like a Frem kit and tactics early on. Alternatively, like, getting Haga Basin early if you're getting like an early harvest contract or something in round 2 can be first. So I think she gets a lot of like optionality if she goes second, and also getting like a somewhat favorable like early card buy can really help her game as well.
Yeah, okay. I can see that. Like I was gonna agree with you. I do think like Chani is probably second position. Second position is probably the best. In terms of if you had to rate the positions and when you should pick Chani, like where would you put her? Second would obviously be first, but then what are your thoughts on like third, fourth, and first? So for anybody who's like watching, if you're in a tough position and you see Chani in the row in fourth, is that a good spot to pick her? What about in third? What about in first?
Yeah, I like Chani in third next, I would say. Third is nice because the combats kind of play into you and like curve into you. So for example, like you get to see what kind of happens in the first 2 combats. And then you kind of have a lot more information to work with. So when you're going first in the round 3 combat, you're not just like totally like clueless as to what's going on. Also, getting to go first in round 7 is really nice because that's usually the last round of the game. And third position has a unique opportunity in that they sort of like get the first opportunity to go to privilege. And Chani can sometimes be a deck building leader. So getting the chance to go to privilege maybe even like with your ring and just kind of draw all the cards in your deck can be really powerful for her.
Yeah. Okay. I was actually thinking maybe first position would be good for her, simply because you get first access to like Fremkit to slowly start working on your Fremen part. But yeah, and then you also get first access on the row. So I would probably put first over third, but I can totally see an argument for like third as well. So I guess in your opinion, it'd be like what, second position first, then third position second, and then like what are your thoughts on like fourth versus first? Who do you think is better between fourth or first?
Yeah, I'd probably take first position over fourth. You make a good point about trying to get to Fremen early is usually pretty good for her.
Okay. So yeah, and it like okay. So I guess now we'll go through like opening lines. So obviously you went over like the specific list. You just start with like Fremkit and then go to tactics, right? And you just buy some sort of card, right? Is there any other opening lines that you want to specifically talk about with Chani for the viewers out there?
Yeah, so I think there's a few different lines you can go with, and often it has to do with like the cards on the opening row or like what your starting hand looks like and what others are doing. Um, we can talk about the Fremen ones first. So like if you want to prioritize like your round one card buy, then I think yeah you can do what you said and where you go like from kit into like maybe tactics second or tactics round two. Alternatively, what you can do is you can also prioritize your round two card buy. So like maybe the early row has like a big card up here, like a 7 or an 8 coster, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so there's kind of a trick you can do with Chani where if you prioritize your round two card buy by say like going tactics, maybe like trash one of these daggers, trash or seek allies, right? And
Yeah.
then
Let's draw a sample hand so that people can like see.
okay.
Here, let's just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Say something like something like this is your
Yeah.
hand, right? This is your first 5 cards.
Oh gosh, yeah. So this is a somewhat demoralizing opening hand, you might say. Um, but the silver lining here is that you can really kind of make your round two card buy work with this, where like maybe round one you go like tactics, right? And you like trash your dagger, right? And then you can kind of do whatever else you want. Maybe you just go like you can
Assembly
go
hall or something.
gather support or
Okay,
something. Yeah,
yeah.
something call. Maybe just like have some extra troops for the late game, and then like you buy a prepare the way. Where's a prepare the way? I'll get one out. This is not the most exciting round one, but it sets you up to do some pretty cool things round two, where when you draw these cards. Oh wait, those were yeah okay. Wait, what am I doing? Okay. Where's my other access card?
Should be
There
Diplo.
we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, if you draw some sort of like hand like this in round two, you can now go to Frem Kit, draw a card.
Yep. Now you have 2 on Fremen. Take 2 on Fremen real quick. Up.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, the game hasn't started. That's why. Okay. Anyways, we're gonna assume that you have 2 on Fremen.
I'll just move the agents manually,
Yeah.
and then you can go here with your ring, and draw 2 cards. Okay. And then I would be revealing this. Like, even though I redrew my dagger, right? Like, the odds of you hitting like 7 or 8 persuasion, 7
Yeah.
persuasion with this kind of line is like guaranteed, and then 8 is still like pretty good odds.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you've got like a really trim deck with like a huge power card that you can like abuse throughout the game. And so she can
Yep.
actually have a very strong early line that way.
Yeah. So you're saying like her deck building early on can be super strong, especially if you're like in the second position, which is also why I would assume that you really like her in the second position because of like a big 8 coster or 7 costers on the row, and you can find this like Fremen line into like a siege, and then you have your ring to then spend the play Fedaykin and maneuver, spend a water for 2 card draw, and then you find your 2 cards, and that allows you to hit 8. So I guess in this specific hand that you spoke about, you actually hit 8, and all you had to do was just redrew into your prepare the way and your dagger. Yeah, and also you have hooks for the rest of the game, so you can go worms and stuff too. Yeah. But yeah, so I guess you would probably say like, oh, if you see Chani, if you get Chani in second position and you see like a big 8 coster, you should probably pick her. Or I guess maybe the other way. It's like you see a big 8 coster in the row and you have the option to pick Chani in second position, then you should probably be picking her up.
Yeah. I think that's usually an indicator that she could work well. Like this hand doesn't always work, but there is like some flexibility, and like maybe you just draw your ring and you buy the big cards in round 3. Because usually these 8 costers will sit around until like round 3 or so. So like you can kind of work around, but there's just a lot of potential outcomes that lead to you getting the 8 coster with
Yeah.
Chani.
Even 7 costers. Actually, most 7 costers do disappear by like round 2 though. But yeah, you are if you are in second position, you also get first buy on a 7 coster because it's probably not going to be gone on round 1 unless some gurney or airline ability happens. But yeah, you always have good options to pick up a good card in second position. So yeah, if there's an 8 or 7 coster, definitely Chani would be a good pick. But yeah, we talked about the front end line. So is there like now let's talk about like a different like a different path for Chani. Say you don't have Chani in second position, right? Say it's like a third position or something. Like what other options out there? What other options does Chani have in terms of like how she plays?
Yeah, so I think Chani actually is pretty good at completing a lot of early contracts.
Okay.
And a lot of that revolves around like this early one spice that you're going to get. Usually you can trigger this one spice round 1 if you want to, or you're triggering it by the end of round 2. And that kind of makes a lot of things possible. So for example, just spending that one spice, it makes this like these spice refinery contracts a little bit better. So for example, this one gives you troops, which you love because you're Chani and you have this little track.
Yep.
And also you can afford to pay the one spice to get a whole lot of Solari at refinery early. And that'll give you a lot of gas to kind of accelerate your game. Similar things with like espionage, right? Is you can afford this like one spice earlier than most leaders might be able to with that one spice. There is another trick you can do with the harvest contracts.
Yep.
So for example, take this take this harvest 4, right? If you go to round 2 to hog a basin, which you will have first dibs on if you're in second position, right? And you can actually play your ring to trigger this one spice thing. If maybe you send like 2 troops around 1, then you sort of like send 1 troop out and then retreat him back immediately.
Yep.
You actually gain 1 spice, which will allow you to trigger this harvest 4 contract, which can be a massive accelerator. Because what you're going to do with that is you'll immediately like go green or something and buy like some game breaking tech, maybe get some troops and just really accelerate your game that way. Maybe
Yep.
even get like a high council seat or something.
Other commanders too. Yep.
Yeah, you can get commanders, which will just kind of accelerate. So getting like all those resources early can be like a huge accelerator to your game. So like if you're not going for this kind of like early deck building at Fremen, you can alternatively like take the contract line. It's pretty good.
Yeah. There's actually a decent bit of contracts out there that Chani can complete. Obviously, any of the harvest 3s, even the harvest 4s, she has abilities to complete because of this specific little trick that she has. Since her ring has a double like a double usability, you can retreat any number of troops. So as Bob said, you can deploy 2 troops in for the first combat, lose them, and then you still have 1 troop left in your garrison, which then you can instantly deploy on Haga Basin and then retreat it with your signet ring. This does assume you do have to have your signet ring in your second hand. But it's a 50-50, right? You either draw your signet ring in your first hand or you draw it in second hand. But yeah, it's a very neat trick to complete these contracts early on. Obviously, if you're in second position, picking up the harvest 3 in general is nice because you're almost always going to be getting Hug a Basin on round 1 unless somebody else goes to pick up Hug a Basin on round 1. But yeah, I think
there are also some cool lines you can do if your signet ring is in your opening hand.
Okay.
And that's usually the perk of the signet ring in your opening hand is you can use it to send troops and then retreat them. Like you could go Arakeen and like send 3 and retreat 3, right? And it really accelerates you on this track so that you start really getting close to this 1 water at the end, right? And that water can allow you to do a lot of things. Like maybe you picked up this harvest 4 early and it didn't work out. But now with that water, you can maybe start playing for the deep desert line and trying to win the deep desert race. Because usually you'll especially if you draw the signet early, you'll be hitting this water around like end of round 3 or so, which is around the time that deep desert starts to look really juicy. So maybe like you've got your starting water, like maybe you spent it or something. But if you go like siege for a water and then you trigger this water and then maybe you get a water off the combat, right? You can hit 3 water out of nowhere and really steal the deep desert that way.
Yeah. Also, good thing is like you can also ambush other players. Like some people are setting up that some people only think you have 1 water in the before the next round, and like the combat gives you a water. There's some combats out there like I guess let's just quickly go through some of them. Like Imperial Basin, but you get like 3rd, so you only score 1 water. But since you've lost enough troops, you score the end of the track, so that puts you up to another water, and that puts you up to 3, and then you ambush whoever's setting up for a 3 water deep desert play, and you take it ahead of them. There's also some other ones that you could pick up. I forgot the contract one. There's also that combat that could show off. I'll put a picture of it. I don't have it right now, but we'll put up the contract card. The contract water combat. That one also gets you water. But yeah, it's a good way to maybe harvest for if you pick up these contracts and it doesn't work out. But yeah, I think that was good, Bob. Any terms in terms of like, what are your thoughts on like the Spice Refinery into Commander line for Chani? Like, if if say the contracts aren't good, and then you also like get blocked on like tactics or Fremkit, or say you're just not in second position, right? Say you're in like third position, and round one tactics Fremkit get blocked. It's unlikely, but could happen.
Yeah, I do like the Spice Refinery Commander line. Usually, if there's not a like high persuasion card on the row that I'm trying to buy, because the downside of that line is you're not going to hit very high persuasion because you're not really drawing any
Yeah.
cards. But I do like the commander line because especially if you pick up like some retreat cards later and you get like a driven commander or a hardy commander, it can really kind of like supplement the engine you have with your passive. The one piece of advice I would give is to strongly consider gather support over assembly hall. I know a
Okay.
lot of people love drawing the early intrigue.
Yep. Gambling.
But your troops on Chani are very valuable, and these guys are what allow you to fuel your engine. Because Chani doesn't actually have a whole lot of like combat abilities herself, so it's very common that you're playing versus like a Gurney or like a Duncan or someone with a bunch of commanders, right? And all your troops just die early because you can't keep up with them in combat. So I think going gather support early really gives you kind of the sustainable troop engine to sort of like keep up with them.
Yeah, I would agree. So yeah, I mean, I guess like there's like three main opening lines with Chani. You'd say like, or at least I would think there's obviously the Desert Tactics Fremkit line where you just spam Fremen and then you start activating your Signet Ring for extra card draw. Then there's the contract line where you pick up one of these nice little contracts to harvest 3, harvest 4 could possibly be, assuming Ring is in your second hand. Then also Espionage could be good because of the extra spice. Spice Refinery, same reason for Solari on Spice Refinery, especially with the extra spice that you get. And then finally, the last one would be like Spice Refinery into like a gathered support to buy like a nice commander. So I guess since we're speaking about commanders, what are your thoughts on like on the skills? Like, what skills should Chani players be targeting?
Yeah, so I think driven will continue to usually be the best skill in like the vast majority of games, at least in the early game, just because that one spice is a lot. And
Yeah,
when you supplement the spice with the extra spice you're getting from your track, like you can go fight a combat that has no spice on the combat, right? Maybe you're getting like second place in this like Imperial Basin combat, but you can still get 2 spice between like driven and your passive, so it really like gives you a lot of resources. And then if you do win a combat, or if you do fight in a combat like the Protect the Siege is one that gives you like 3 spice for second place, all of a sudden you've got like 5 spice to work with, and then you can do a lot of things with that. So I think driven is pretty good. I think hardy is also very good on China because again, just like you kind of want every cube you can get, right? So getting the extra troops is really good with her. And then I would say like especially if you're picking up like retreat cards, which I think we'll talk about in a bit, but like if you're building like a retreat build, then any of these like 3 retreat starter card abilities can be very strong.
yeah, I would agree. In terms of combat, say you're playing like a battle heavy Chani. What commander skills are what would you play into the I guess the commander skill
Yeah,
line? Oops, sorry.
I think
These are the 4.
yeah, it kind of depends on the early line you took. Like maybe if you took like a dutiful service line earlier, you're playing like contract Chani, right? Then maybe you want to be picking up skills like canny and loyal, right? Loyal you don't really pick unless you know you're gonna hit the 3 influence soon. Um, but like if you're generating a lot of spice and you're playing combat Chani and you're going green a lot, I think canny can
Yeah,
be good. For fierce, I would usually say like I just kind of look around the table and see if people are getting worms soon. So like if I'm playing like deck buildy Chani, like and I went Fremen early, then maybe I kind of blocked everyone else out from getting their hooks, and like maybe fierce is not so good. But if I
yeah,
chose maybe like one of the other lines and left hooks wide open and people are going, then I think I would definitely take fierce. So usually I look at these skills and I think like which ones can I trigger the most consistently, right? Um, so if I have 3 influence, it's just loyal every time, but often I don't. If people are getting worms, I go for fierce, and if I think I'm going to be going green a lot to buy text, I would buy this. So it's not too different from how other leaders would evaluate it.
okay, yeah. I would probably agree with you. I do think I'll also agree with you in the sense that like I think that the real skills are probably like the strongest for obviously Driven being the first, and then Hardy being the second one because you obviously, as you said, every cube matters, and Chani needs to Chani needs troops to be able to accelerate her track. Yeah, thoughts on like in terms of, I guess you said charismatic or Kenny. I think that this is like a big conversation that people tend to have, especially with Chani, because since you're going to be revealing a lot of since you're going to be drawing a lot of cards with your signet ring, hitting the extra charismatic persuasion, at least for me, has not been like game breaking. Like I'm almost always gonna be on like 9 or 10. Like the extra charismatic puts me up to like either 10 or 11, and I don't really need the extra persuasion. So I kind of, it feels kind of wasteful. Versus Canny, as Bob said, people are going to go into gather support to pick up troops or assembly hall to pick up intrigues or persuasion, and I actually do like Canny a lot more. So, like, Bob? What are your thoughts being like charismatic or Canny? Um,
I think it really comes down to how your deck's been constructed. Like if you are in a position where you know you're going to be drawing your signet a lot and you're always going to have water to pay for the signet, then I think charismatic it might not be necessary. But I've actually found some situations where it came in handy. Like say you're at 8 persuasion, right? And you'd rather not spend the water with your ring to like draw 2 cards, right? Because it's pretty expensive. You can instead just choose to send your commander in instead, and that'll get you to like 9 persuasion or whatever number you want to hit without having to like spend the pretty costly water to pay for your ring. So having like the option value, I think of having that charismatic can come in handy. But if you're confident that like your deck is well constructed and like you're not going to
yeah.
need the extra persuasion, then like yeah, you go to Canny.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's like a fair argument. Um, Yeah, and I definitely would like. I mean, also listening to you probably is going to make me pick up charismatic a little bit more, simply because I haven't really thought about like the optionality of being able to pick up the commander and throwing it in. Like I almost always just pick up Canny because I just love spamming gather support or assembly hall for the troops and stuff when I play Chani. But yeah, I'll definitely think about charismatic a little bit more when I do play my games. But yeah, the other three skills, obviously, desperate is like a one-time use. Fierce, as you said, if you're the one who's gonna go for the double fragment early on, that means nobody else is gonna be going double fragment early on. So fierce, at best, is only gonna get you one sword because you're gonna be the guy who's gonna spawn worms, right? Loyal, as you said, is only good if you're playing that double dutiful play, and you're going very contract heavy, and you can maybe hit 3 on Emperor and get dutiful service online that way.
Yeah,
Um,
I do think that the loyal Canny combo can be good if you're like maybe picking up your commanders in the late game. Because usually when you go dutiful a lot, right, this triggers loyal.
yeah.
Then it also unlocks privilege,
Hmm.
and it gets you a bunch of money because you've been completing all your contracts. So with the money and privilege access, you're now on green as well,
Yeah.
right? So usually these two can pair together well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I guess that's all I have to say is like I probably agree with you. The contracts do allow you to complete Solari, which is then useful for commanders along with just green access. So the this combination is pretty good too. That is what makes your commander worth effectively 6 swords, right? A very powerful
Yep.
commander. And you become the combat guide for round 7 because people are scared of your commanders.
Yeah, and like kind of tie it back to Chani, like sometimes you can play this like combat Chani where sort of like if you build up a really big commander, right, and have a strong like troop engine, you can kind of bully some people out of the combat, and now you're able to like get good combat rewards and good deals in combat while also like kind of churning through your track, and so it can make combat even more profitable for Chani.
Yeah, I think that was a great analysis of like the Sardaukar skills in terms of like how Chani plays and like the different types of Chani. Like when I say different types, I mean like the combat player versus the deck builder player. So in terms of like I guess since we're talking about deck building, let's talk about like cards to buy, right? So on this row, we pulled aside some of the cards that Chani really should be targeting, and we'll kind of go through each and every card and why it's good for Chani. So but let's start with obviously these costers, these 8 and 7 costers are just good for everybody. Every leader is probably happy with picking them up, but this is mainly out there because we just wanted to demonstrate why you should be picking up Chani in like second position because you can hit 7 or 8 quickly. But yeah, let's go through some of the the more affordable options for Chani. Let's start with Southern Elders. So Bob, why is Southern Elders a good card for Chani?
So I think Southern Elders is good because it reveals for water, right? And Chani, like your water economy is very important because you have that very strong signet ability to spend a water for 2 card draw. but that's very dependent on getting the water. So with this card, it's really going to solve a lot of your water problems for you. You probably are revealing it most of the time, and then also like the Fremen Bond for 2 persuasion is really good. Like you'll notice that this reveal, if you have Fremen on, becomes the same reveal as like an 8 coster, right? So it's quite good. And then also having like the Fremen and Bene Gesserit tags, I think especially early, this gives you a lot of like flexibility in how you build your deck. Like you can kind of choose to build a more Bene Gesserit deck, or you can build like a more Fremen deck as you go on. So getting like the early flexibility, getting the early water, and then you'll also notice this has troop potential on it, which is very valuable for Chani.
Yeah, I think that was a great analysis of the specific Southern Elders card. The troops are very good. Like as you said, like this card, if it didn't have the Fremen Bond ability and it just had two persuasion, it's probably close enough to compete with like other 8 costers. Like this would be a very very good card, especially for the water and stuff, right? But yeah, I agree. I agree with your analysis of Southern Elders. Let's go to like Watermaster. Why did you put aside Watermaster here for Chani?
Yeah, so a lot of the times with Chani, what you're doing is you're playing like a few card draw cards, like you're playing your Signet, you're playing like a Prepare the Way, or like other things that draw cards. And so you want a lot of very strong reveal effects that we're seeing. So Watermaster, the reveal for like 2 spice is pretty strong. Again, if you pair that with like a driven commander or like your passive, you can be getting like 4 spice out of the combat, just kind of for participating, right? Without even having to like win any rewards. So I think that's pretty good. And then alternatively, like if you're not hitting your Fremen Bond or you're kind of out of other cards to play, I think being able to play this for water is also quite strong. It makes spots like Research Station, for example, which is like very water costly and not that attractive to Chani. It makes spots like Research Station all of a sudden like much more playable. Or you can do it to something like you can play it to Siege and like get 2 water and like go steal the Deep Desert.
Yeah, so these both kind of have the similar like path of have the Fremen bond because they are both Fremen tags. So if you pick up these cards, you're probably gonna be picking up some other Fremen because you want to have the Fremen bond ability because that's kind of the reason why these cards are powerful. Also, they have the similar ability of generating water. They both generate water, which is obviously very good for Chani. Yeah, obviously the Southern Elders is a personal preference. Is probably better than Northern Watermaster on Chani specifically because it gives you, as Bob said earlier, optionality. It gives you access, right? It gives you access to Benny and Fremen. The Fremen access is good because you need to. If you don't have 2 on Fremen, this allows you to get 2 on Fremen, right? Also, the ability to generate troops with another Benny card. Say you buy a Prepare the Way, you can play the Prepare the Way, and then you can play the Southern Elders right after to pick up 2 more troops into the combat. And then obviously, those 2 troops when they do die, they'll allow you to move your Tactician track to get more rewards that way, right? So let's move on to some of the other ones. Let's go to Command Center next, Bob. Yeah, this card has Emperor access, Blue access, and then for Emperor, 2 influence, you pick up a troop. But mainly it's like the reveal effect. Can you talk about the reveal effect, Bob, and why it's good for like Chani?
Yeah, so Chani obviously, kind of loves retreating troops, right? So I think any effect that can sort of like allow her to send some troops in, retreat them, get some value, and also kind of keep her troops alive is just like very important. Because again, like it's very possible that you're going up against like some other like strong combat builds and your troops can die easily. So the chance to get the value from deploying your troops and then like still get them out safely can be like very powerful for her. And then also hitting like high persuasion to kind of go with her kind of deck building path.
Yeah, think yeah, that's the main reason that you pick up Command Center with Chani is because of the retreat 2 for 2 because you get to move up your track, and the track says anytime anytime you retreat or lose troops in the combat, you get to move up your track. So this is good. Similarly, Chani clever tactician. Why is Chani good on Chani, Bob?
So I have a theory in Dune that anytime you see your leader on the card
Okay.
art, it is probably a good card for you. And I would say
Okay.
this is definitely true for Chani. It's
Okay.
got a Fremen tag, which is, you probably are building a Fremen deck, or you often are building like a Fremen deck, so that's very good. It saves your troops while giving the swords. So like also getting the swords on reveal can be very powerful for just like, keeping your troops alive and, supplementing your combat strength. So yeah, I'd say she's kind of like the name of the leader, so it's a pretty good card.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, also the Fremen bond. Again, this is a common recurring theme with Chani or just any sort of Fremen cards that they rely on the Fremen bond a lot. So if you pick up Chani, you probably want to pick up another Fremen card. Also, just having three or more troops in the conflict, you get an intrigue. The play effect of this card isn't bad, but on Chani, you're mainly using it for the retreat two troops to get the four swords ability, so that you can
Yeah.
move your track while
Also,
also hoarding troops. Sorry, Bob. What did you
yeah.
say?
Also for Chani, there's like some nice tricks you can do where like sometimes if your track is at like the last cube or two, right? Again, you mentioned earlier that it doesn't really like overflow. So you can use Chani to kind of trigger the end of your track, even
Yeah,
though you still got a
retreat two
whole lot of
troops.
troops still in the
Yep.
contract. Sorry, still in the combat, and it resets the track before the combat resolves, and then you can start churning through your track once more, which is really nice.
Yeah. Um, that's why Chani's so good on Chani. We'll come back to Holy War. There's a couple of things I want to talk about Holy War, but let's go to Ruthless Leadership next.
Yes. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. Oh, okay. So yeah, we've picked out a few like command cards here, because again we've talked about like Shani's deck building potential, and I think like it's pretty easy for her to hit command because usually she's just drawing so many cards, and I think these cards synergize with her especially well. So for example, Ruthless Leadership allows her to deploy on reveal. So maybe she retreated some troops earlier, but now she wants to send them back in. You'll note that with Chani, you could retreat the two troops for four swords and then send them back in with the Ruthless Leadership. So there's some tricks you can do there. And I think also I want to talk about the value of trashing on Chani. So Chani loves to trash because she's a deck building leader, right? You're drawing lots of cards, but if you're only just drawing your daggers and your dunes all the time, it's still going to feel pretty bad. However, she has trouble affording spaces like Desert Tactics to trash because her water is so constrained because she's always spending it for like her ring or like worms or whatever. So access to any sort of trashing for Chani that doesn't require spending your water can be very valuable. So you see that with like things like Ruthless Leadership, I think can be very very helpful. Also cards like Shrouded Council to kind of like trash on reveal. Um, can be especially good. So anywhere you're seeing like cheap trashing for Chani can really accelerate her deck building until all of a sudden you've trashed all the bad cards in your deck and you're just drawing like your really good reveal cards like Southern Elders or Watermaster or like what is this card, Southern Faith.
Then Fate, yeah.
That can be really good.
Yeah. So I mean that's the reason for all these, these command cards. So if you see any sort of command cards, you might want to think about picking them up as Chani. Like maybe early on, Shattered Council isn't as great because hitting six early on is difficult, especially if you don't have the two on Fremen to be able to trigger your ring. But obviously, Ruthless Leadership and Southern Fate are very very good for you because obviously the card draw ability on Southern Fate and also just the reveal effect of hitting command. And also, can we talk about like the swords on Southern Faith? When you go into combat, this gives you even more potential to be a bigger threat. So obviously, Ruthless Leadership and Southern Faith early pickups are very very good for Chani because you can obviously get a lot of trashing done. And then as Bob said, if you trashed all your bad cards, you're only going to be seeing your good cards. Like maybe you picked up Southern Elders, Watermaster, or some sort of very strong reveal cards. So picking them up early on is very nice. Yeah, and then finally, I guess we'll go to Shishakli. Like why? Like Shishakli also kind of falls into like the same theme of Ruthless Leadership allows you to trash and instantly draw too. Also, the other thing with Shishakli and Chani is that it gives you Fremen bonds. So if you don't have two on Fremen like early on, and you can find maybe like another Fremen to get Shishakli with, then maybe revealing Shishakli for maybe the Fremen bond so that you can get two on Fremen is super nice. However, you do want to be playing it early for the trashing to draw ability, so that you get rid of your daggers, you get rid of your dunes, and you're going to be playing into a only good cards with your deck. Anything else you want to add on to that, Bob, for Shishakli?
Yeah, I'd say Shishakli fulfills like the three or like three pretty awesome criteria for like a good deck building card. So the first two are like trashing and drawing, right? These are the two mechanics that just synergize really well together, right? If you trash all the bad cards, then all of a sudden the value of drawing cards becomes a lot higher because you're only drawing your good cards. So usually like when you're playing a deck building leader, you need to find a balance of like trashing and drawing to make it work. If you're just doing one or the other, you're either trashing but not drawing any of your remaining cards, or you're only drawing like daggers and dunes all the time. So the fact that you see both in like one agent box makes Shishakli very strong. And I'd say the third part that makes her a good deck building card is the way she kind of like transitions into the late game, where like the first few times you sort of like play her for the trash and the draw, maybe you draw some of your other like strong Fremen cards, and then once you get towards the end and like your deck's running a lot more efficiently and you can draw it pretty easily without Shishakli's help, you can just reveal her for like a faction bump. Like this is pretty crazy to have a 4-cost card that can just give you a faction bump on reveal, and 2 swords. So it's like the way she transitions well into the late game is also just makes it very strong.
Yeah. Would you play Shishakli early if you're Chani? Because say you don't have 2 on Fremen. Like, what are your thoughts on revealing Shishakli? If you say you have another Fremen card, would you still play her over revealing her?
I think it would depend like how badly I need the Fremen bump at the time, right? Like if I've already got a plan to get that Fremen bump, I would probably choose to play her. Just because like playing her early accelerates your deck so much because you're going to trash a card that you're never going to see again. Like you might cycle your deck 5 times more, right? So having that card gone is like pretty helpful. And then also drawing a card to like improve your persuasion just goes up so much if you actually play her rather than revealing her. So the fact that you played her and drew a card probably allows you to buy some big card that you're going to be able to make use of later in the game. So usually I would play her early.
Okay. Yeah. A straightforward answer. Play her over revealer. Pretty good. Unless you obviously are desperate for the Fremen bump early on. But yeah. And then finally we'll go to Holy War. So Holy War has 4 accesses: Emperor, Benny, and Spacing, and green access. And each opponent loses 1 troop. Each opponent spying on the board space where you sent an agent. This turn must move that spy. And also the reveal effect: one persuasion and a troop, and has a Fremen bond for the ability to deploy. So why is this card extremely good on Chani, Bob?
So I think there's a lot of good things going on with this card. First, we see a troop. Again, every time you see a troop, this is exciting for Chani because she can actually get stuff in. We also see the Fremen tag, which is pretty good for her, right? Because it's going to synergize and help her trigger her Fremen bonds. Deploying on reveal is very strong, just like in general, but also in Chani because you've got to be like very careful with your troop deployments, and this really helps you like optimize those. And I think the last element is like the play effect where early game you probably went Fremen, but now you need to like hit these other factions, and Holy War can do that. It can help you complete all of your other like faction homework. And then it also just kind of bullies the other players out of the combat by destroying their troops. So again, like if you can bully like 1 or 2 players into like just not competing for any of the combats, it's going to make the combats a lot more safer than you to go into. Because where things go sideways for Chani is like, all your troops go in and then they die and they get 4th and like your engine kind of stops. But this one sort of like stops other people's engines and makes it safer for your own.
Right. Yeah. I think that was a fantastic analysis of Holy War. One thing to mention about Holy War is that say you're Chani and you don't have Holy War. Say an opponent gains Holy War, right? Another thing with Holy War is that once they play it, right, each opponent loses 1 troop. If you say were to lose that troop from the combat, you are able to move your track. To this tactician, the way that it reads is you can, whenever you retreat or lose any number of troops in the conflict, it does not have to be on your turn, right? You can lose it on somebody else's turn, right? Like say Holy War, and you can still move your track. It's not like that. It's not like a broken mechanic, but it is a pretty interesting mechanic when you think about like maybe you're at the end of the track and you just need 1 more troop to get to the end of the track to reset it, so you get the extra water. But yeah, it can be pretty cool of a mechanic. The other final thing that I wanted to talk about for Holy War, and like specifically just like the deploy effect, is Bob kind of touched on it with Ruthless Leadership, but the ability for Holy War and say like combining with like Chani Clever Tactician, right? Say you have these 2 cards together, right, and you reveal them together. What you can actually do is you can retreat your troops, get the 4 swords, and then instantly deploy them with Fremen Bond. So you actually get 4 swords, right? You keep 2 troops in your garrison, and then you instantly deploy them. So you have you instantly get like an 8 sword swing, right? Is that an 8 sword swing or is it a 4 sword? I guess it'd be a 4 sword swing, right? And then you also get the extra troops, so it could be like an instant 6 sword deploy for you, right? Very good. The other thing that what you can't do is you can't deploy a troop and then retreat it and then deploy it again during that same action. So I think that's one of the mechanics that we forgot to talk about. So it's like if you say you go to Arakin with your Signet Ring, right? You deploy in 3 troops. You deploy in 3 troops and you retreat, say 2 of them, right? You can't redeploy 2 of those troops again, even though it's like the X space, because I believe because of the way that the X space works, any combat space that you see, you can deploy as many troops you recruit +2 from your garrison. So if you deploy 3 at Arakeen, you've already used 2 troops to deploy into your garrison, along with the 1 troop you recruited. So you can just retreat them. What about Bob? Can you say deploy 2 troops in your garrison? Say you like go to Arakeen, right? And you deploy 2 troops, right? Oops. You deploy 2 troops, and then you retreat 1 from Chani. Can you still deploy another troop? Because you still haven't, because you haven't sent 2 troops into from your garrison. Is that allowed? I actually don't know.
You cannot. The way the ruling is worded is that you may not deploy the same troop twice in the same turn unless you have something like a detonation or something. But basically, like if I deploy him and then I retreat him, I would call this like the Chani dance or the Chani shuffle. I cannot deploy him again because I've already deployed him this turn.
Okay. Wait, but what if you say you go to Arakeen, right? Say you go to Arakeen and you deploy, say just 2. Say you deploy only 2, right? Say you're at like
Yeah.
because and you're Chani, right? So you retreat, say because say in this position you're at like this part of the track, right? So you go to Arakeen and then you put in 2 troops and then you retreat 1 to be able to hit to be able to hit the final water. Then you get the
Yeah.
water. Can you deploy the second troop in or not?
So this is the troop that was retreated.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you could send 2 so long as you're not sending the same troop back in. So usually it works. Usually it works when you've got 3 troops. But like it gets pretty awkward when you have 2 troops and it's like you want to deploy 2 and then like retreat 1 and then I would maybe love to deploy this guy again for like my 3rd troop. I could not do that.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
but usually with 3 troops you can do like most things.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, as I said, like Holy War Chani Tactician is a very strong combo because of the you retreat instantly and then you redeploy and that allows you to move up your track a lot, right? Because Chani moves up your track 2 troops, right? And then Holy War, since you're going to be deploying another 3 troops back into combat, you're going to move up just from that specific action, you're going to be moving up at least 5 swords or at least 5 boxes. That's going to guarantee you at least 1 spice and maybe even a water, right? In some cases it could get water. Say you feel like 6 troops in the combat and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But yeah, it's just very useful with Holy War. And having Holy War with any sort of other Fremen card is very good on Chani. If you get Chani Clever Tactician with Holy War, very fantastic because you become a very strong combat threat early on. And then finally, the bait card that we really want to kind of maybe just like mention is Unswerving Loyalty. Bob, do you want to talk about this? Why is
Yeah.
Unswerving Loyalty a bait card, perhaps?
Well, I know I've seen a lot of people buy Unswerving Loyalty on Chani, mostly because the word retreat is indeed printed on the card. But I wouldn't say that makes it necessarily. It was already a pretty weak card to begin with. And I would say that while retreating is nice on Chani, the track is not so strong that it's really worth like warping your game around. Like you have to move 5 blocks on the track for a water, which is nice, but like it's not worth putting Unswerving Loyalty in your deck just so you can like move 1 cube like every other round if you met like the Fremen bond condition. And I think when you consider like how you're building your deck, like if you're trying to build like a pristine deck that has cards like Possible Futures or Interstellar, or like trying to hit this combo with like Holy War and Shining Clever Tactician, I think that like kind of putting in these extra like cards that aren't really going to pull their weight relative to the rest of your deck, like really sets you back. So that's why I usually don't recommend Unswerving Loyalty for Chani.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. The only reason why I sometimes buy Unswerving Loyalty is because it's the only other Fremen card in the deck, and I have like something like Southern Elders or I have Northern Watermaster, and it's like, dang, I just really need to get some sort of Fremen so that I can maybe get like some synergy with Watermaster or some synergy with like Southern Elders, or maybe even if I have Chani Clever Tactician, right? I need in order for me to trigger the 2 persuasion, I need to pick up some sort of Fremen. So sometimes I will pick it up just because of the Fremen tag. Other than that, I wouldn't really pick it up for like the Fremen bond ability. But yeah, I think that should be it for in terms of card. Thoughts on anything else that you want to add, Bob?
No, I would agree with you about Unswerving Loyalty. I think like if you're buying it to trigger your Fremen bond, that's usually the one situation where I think it's good, where like you haven't found another Fremen to do that. But if you're just buying it for this kind of like little effect at the bottom, then it's not worth it.
Yeah, okay. So if we're done with cards, I guess the next thing to move on to would be like text. because I think that's the one thing that we haven't talked about. We talked about opening lines, we talked about position, and we talked about, I guess we talked about opening lines as well in terms of like what your hands should be like. We talked about starter card skills, we talked about cards. So I think the only thing left is specifically just techs. And yeah, we've labeled out 5 techs here. And Bob, why don't you get us started on server receivers? Like, why is this specific tech good on Chani?
Yeah, so I think the all of these techs here kind of play into either like the deck building archetype or the combat archetype that we sort of talked about with Chani. So I'd say like servo receivers like is a pretty good deck building one for Chani. Because again, like we've talked about how you buy a lot of like reveal heavy cards that are revealing for like Fremen Bond or like spice or resources or some sort of thing. So usually the cards that you're playing are like your signet ring and like your prepare the ways and like your diplomacy, right? So being
Yep.
able to buff your signet ring um is pretty good. Like so for the first thing you're gonna get this one-time signet trigger where you can like spend a water for 2 draw, which is like depending on the quality of your deck, that could be a really good deal. And then also like you can now play your signet ring to faction spaces, which is if you're a leader with a powerful signet ring, that's pretty good. And like the easiest place to play it is just play it to deliver supplies, get your 1 water, and then draw 2 off of that is like pretty easy. If you're a bit more resource rich, you can choose to go to espionage, right, and draw a card off espionage, draw 2 off your ring, draw 1 off the spy, and you're probably drawing your whole deck at this point. You'll notice that if you've recently gone through the whole Chani track, you'll have 1 spice and 1 water, which is exactly the resources that you would need to actually do this trick at espionage.
Yeah. So, and I think that was fantastic analysis. Yeah, just taking your signet ring to faction spaces makes your signet ring better. And obviously, the 2 faction spaces that are very important to Chani are, deliver supplies because it instantly turns a water. I mean, because once you go to deliver supplies, you get a spacing bump, and then you also get 2 card draw. Can be useful for drawing into big cards. Say like maybe you bought like possible futures or something, so you just get to see, you get to shuffle through your deck a little bit more. Same with espionage, as Bob said. If you're just going to go to espionage and spend a water with the ring, you're drawing at least 3 cards. Say you have a spy down, that's a 4 card draw. Like maybe you're just drawing your whole deck at this point, right? Maybe you're probably gonna be seeing, like, if you have a bunch of reveal cards, like Southern Elders and Northern Watermaster, they're gonna be revealing for a lot of resources as well. So getting like you spending this extra water at espionage might actually generate you more resources over time. And then obviously Fremkit, kind of similar reason for as espionage. Wouldn't really recommend Fremkit unless it's like you don't have the spice, or because you need the 2 on water, or you need 2 on Fremen somehow. But then if you're probably never going to be on the situation, because it's like if you're going to go to Fremen with your signet ring, then you're never then you don't even have 2 on Fremen to trigger it. But it can be useful to maybe you're sitting on a 3rd tier of the Fremen alliance, or the Fremen faction. Then you can go to Fremkit and then get the water on the 4th tier and then instantly spend it for the signet ring, which can be useful. Has its own niche cases, but yeah, probably the best 2 spots for faction for Chani would be like espionage and deliver supplies. But yeah, I think that's a good analysis of server receivers. Next up, we'll go to Panopticon. Oh, unless Bob, you want to add on to anything for server receivers? Okay,
I think you covered it well. Yeah, I like the Fremkit trick where you go and you trigger the alliance to get the water and then spend that for the signet. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I guess next up would be Panopticon. Why is Panopticon good? Well, specifically on Chani. We know Panopticon is good on like every leader, but why Chani specifically?
So Chani's especially good with Panopticon. I think she can afford it a little bit more easily because she gets a bit more spice early, either if she's like taking the deep desert line that we talked about, or she's getting the spice off her track, can make it a bit more affordable. And then in terms of the effect, it's very good on her. So you'll notice like the spy and the troop build into the 2 archetypes you mentioned earlier. Like spy goes very well with like deck building Chani, and the troop again goes with like combat Chani. And then also I think the end game can be a bit better with her because she does struggle a bit to get her bumps, right? You'll notice like we kind of talked about gunning for Fremen early and then buying a lot of Fremen cards, but a lot of those Fremen cards only go to Fremen spaces, right? They don't actually have a whole lot of icons for some of the other spaces. And so it's often that you've like built a deck that's like, very persuasion high, very resource high, but kind of struggles to get to those other factions. So having the Panopticon to sort of forgive you at the end of the game for not completing those friendships can be very good.
Yeah, I think that was great. I do like the fact that you mentioned that Panopticon helps you with like faction homework, because since you're going to be buying Fremen cards, they're probably going to be only going to Fremen. But yeah, I mean Panopticon is very good on every leader, but as you said, it has the ability to make Chani a combat leader, because the extra troop can be useful to maybe move up the track a little bit faster. And as we said like previously, every cube matters, right? You want to be able to move up this track. Obviously, as we said, like the track shouldn't be like why you play Chani. There's other reasons to play Chani, right? There's big 8 costers on the row possibly. There's also the main reason is for the 2 water for card draw, right? But also moving up this track and getting additional rewards, say for like deploying troops that you're probably going to generate from like Panopticon or generating through like Hardy or maybe generating on reveal with like Holy War, are obviously very fantastic as well. But yeah, Chani allows you to, or Panopticon allows you to, get spies as well, which, as Bob said, gets you more card draw, to see better cards, and obviously the troops important for the tactician track. Anything else, Bob? Or
No, I think that's it for Panopticon. I guess I would say it does go well if you picked up cards like Holy War or Ruthless Leadership that we talked about, because then this troop that you get on reveal can also play.
Yeah, true. You can always deploy on reveal then, with Ruthless Leadership or Holy War. Yeah, you're right about that. I forgot to mention that, but good catch. Next up, we'll go to Disposal Facility. So Disposal Facility is if you don't have the community version specifically, that is in tabletop, that's been hosted by Tabletop Simulator. I guess it's created by like Badger and like Cheesable. But yeah, it's just a bunch of community changes that have been added to the normal Uprising and Bloodlines game. So it just changes it so that we added some text specifically and some cards that have been replaced. But if you do play the community version, you will notice that Disposal Facility is a tech that has been played. If you don't play, just ignore this section. But yeah, why is Disposal Facility like good on Chani?
So I mentioned this a bit earlier with some of the other trashing cards, but anytime you can find a way to trash without having to spend your water at Desert Tactics is very strong for Chani. So getting this can like really thin her deck down. The other nice thing is that like once you start getting to like the territory where you're buying a Spice Mist Flow every round, and you have to like reveal your dunes and stuff to hit Spice Mist Flow, like you can still reveal them and then just trash them on reveal, which can be really nice. And it kind of like really helps keep your deck trim when you're playing that deck building Chani playstyle. It's also like fairly affordable early for Chani because again she's getting that early spice from her track.
Yeah, would agree. Disposal Facility is a pretty good pickup on Chani because of obviously like the reveal turn. Also, the instant trash is very good. You could obviously instantly trash 2 cards on the round you pick it up. If you have 6 persuasion, say you go to like Assembly Hall with like a dagger and you pick it up, you can instantly trash the dagger on buy, and then on reveal, say you have like another dagger, right? And you have 6 persuasion, you can trash the other dagger, and now you're going to be sitting with like only cards that reveal for persuasion, which allows you to hit this 6 cost ability even more. The thing about Disposal Facility is that it specifically says that your cards you can trash one of the cards in play. So if you have just acquired a Spice Flow on on your reveal turn, you can't instantly acquire it and then trash it because anything in your discard or in your deck is not considered in play. Anything that's considered in play would be anything you've played during your agent turns or on your reveal turn. So as you can see, like this Bob's layout here. These diplomacy and signaling would be considered in play, and then on his reveal turn, everything he reveals would also be considered in play. So he would be able to trash like a dagger on this time. But if he wants to say like pick up like a I guess like a Spice Mist Slow and it's in his discard, he cannot trash it. But yeah, think that should be it for Disposal Facility. Anything else you want to add on to, Bob?
I guess like going back to trashing really quick, it's with some games you can get into a state of what I would call like hyper trashing, where you've trashed like a million cards and you're pretty much cycling your whole deck every round. And this can be a very powerful position because all of a sudden you're revealing that you're hitting all of your combos consistently, you're finding your signet consistently, and you're getting like resources on reveal consistently. It can be very strong. And I think Disposal Facility it's surprisingly fast how quickly you can get into that state using a tech like Disposal Facility. If you're like getting 2 trashes around, you buy it, and then like maybe you have one other source of trashing to get you there.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Hyper trashing is extremely good, and obviously some of the cards that I like to hyper trash are like Ruthless Leadership, instantly getting 2 trashes. Also, Shishakli can be helpful, but any card that allows you to trash that isn't specifically doing it the board space like this Desert Tactics is very good in general. But yeah, I think that should be it for disposal facility. Let's go on to the next tech that we have here. Rapid dropships. Why is rapid dropships good on Chani? Because originally I didn't
Yeah.
think it was gonna be like the best tech on Chani, but I guess Bob thinks otherwise.
I'm always a big advocate of rapid dropships. Um, so with Chani, you really get rewarded for building a combat engine that uses like legitimate troops, like rather than like sword reveals or like Sardaukar skills. So you want to be getting actual troops in the combat whenever you can because they work with like your track, they work with like any retreat mechanics you have, and so that can be really good. Another reason dropships is good on Chani is because a lot of times she's like doing her faction homework in the mid game and late game, and unless you're going to like Highliner or something, or Fremen, which you probably don't need Fremen bumps anymore, these spots will allow you to actually deploy from those faction spots. So I think the classic example is probably Sardaukar, which like you probably need that Emperor bump late in the game because you haven't picked it up yet. And being able to deploy from Sardaukar is just incredibly strong. So the ability to like be able to and do your faction homework while still deploying into the combat and getting your combat engine going with dropships is very strong with Chani.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to be picking up dropships a lot more when I'm in Chani. I mean, I also enjoy dropships, but I didn't think about it specifically with the Chani, with Chani specifically because of I just didn't think about the troop generation like that dropships has, and obviously as you said, like being able to deploy on like factions. I didn't think about too much of that because most of my dropships games are just let's just go to gather support and deploy. Let's just go to high council and revisit and deploy, right? But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the cases of being able to deploy on factions. Like even if it's like a dutiful service, you're ready to pick up a contract and you can still be able to deploy into the conflict. Even if it's one troop to maybe hit the end of the track. Like say you're sitting on like the ninth or the seventh tier, deploying one troop just to get the extra water. It's like imagine you just be getting what fourth in the combat for another water. Seems pretty good for one troop. But yeah, think that should be it for dropships, right? Yeah, Bob highlighted the fact that you can go to factions. Obviously, the dropships tech itself is very good because of as I said, like the gather support lines early on, and then maybe the high council revisit lines as well. Because anytime you revisit high council, you get 2 spice, an intrigue, and 3 troops. So yeah, dropships can be useful with that too. Yeah, and I think we're gonna go to the next tech now, which is spy drones. Which is why don't you talk about spy drones? I know this is one of your favorite tech, Bobs. Tex Bob.
Spy drones, yeah, spy drones is kind of like the more expensive but flashier version of disposal facility, I would say.
Yeah,
Um, it's good for similar reasons in that it gives you the trashing, but in this case you're also getting the spies, which I mentioned earlier that like having the combination of both trashing and drawing for a deck building leader is very very strong.
yeah,
So you're getting some trashes. You are now drawing your like pristine deck that because you trash all the bad cards away. It can be very good. The difficult part is often affording this, but if you found like some spice reveal cards like Northern Watermaster or Southern Faith to like kind of offset the cost, like it can quickly like pay itself back. And then the
yeah,
last piece is getting the Solari. I think can be very good for Chani because you'll notice like she doesn't have a whole lot of innate like money skills. She's often playing for like water and spice. So getting the Solari can really be the difference sometimes between whether or not she's able to afford like Swordmaster or High Council or Imperial Privilege.
yeah. I mean, I would agree with you. I only like spy drones because of obviously the trashing is good, allows you to fit into that like hyper trashing mechanic that we talked about previously. Also, the spies, as Bob said, allows you to draw more cards in the future. And since you're going to be getting Solari, it allows you to get Swordmaster and High Council. Thing about spy drones is that you can choose to flip spy drones and not trash. Like not if you had recall to spy this round, you can still flip spy drones and just get the extra Solari. Like some cases with Chani, I've had well not with Chani, just like any leader. I'm sitting on like 5 Solari, and I see Swordmaster open for 6, so it's like somebody else is probably gonna be going there before me, so I just take my option to instantly flip spy drones, get the extra Solari, go to Swordmaster. But the thing is, if you have a spy on Swordmaster at that instance, you cannot get the Solari, go to Swordmaster, and then choose to trash because the way the spy drones reads, it's an and condition. So if you have recall to spy during the time that you are flipping this tech, then only will you get the trash. Otherwise, you just get the Solari. But yeah, I think that should be it in terms of like text. Anything else you want to add on to Bob?
No, I think that's it for text.
Yeah. Is there anything else in terms of? Oh, we forgot to mention intrigues. What are good intrigues for Chani here? Uh, I mean, personally, withdrawal agreement very good. Um, Strategic stockpiling also is actually not even that bad of an intrigue because Chani's probably going to be hitting two on Fremen, so hitting the third one for Fremen can be, can be reasonable. However, it can be bait too because you kind of want to save your water for say like two player signaling, but it is if you have just like a boatload of water, right? Say you are revealing like Southern Elders like every round, and you're also playing Northern Watermaster every round. Like you just have like 7 water, right? Maybe getting strategic stockpiles isn't bad. Any other intrigues, Bob, that you want to like mention? Any of the retreat intrigues are actually not bad for Chani as well. Retreating for a spy, retreating for a contract, or like retreating for 3 spice. They're pretty good too.
Yeah, just about any combat intrigue I would say is going to be good on Chani, just because you are going to be in the combat so often.
Oh yeah,
So I usually say like you have a lot of options in what you do in the combat with Johnny, whether or not you're just kind of limping in to move your track, or if you're like going for the combat win. So the intrigues that you draw can kind of dictate what you're trying to do in those combats.
yeah. I think that was great. And I think that should like really wrap it up. I think we've mentioned everything here. Oh, I guess we forgot to mention like what combat should Chani be targeting. Do you want to kind of go over that? Like what specific combats or what kind of resources should Chani be targeting from the combats?
Yeah, I would say like keep an eye out for like any water you can find, right? Because water has a little bit of extra value on Chani. Also, like especially with Chani, you're often deciding like whether or not you want to go for worms. And if you can get like water off the combat, then usually that means it allows you to afford both sandworms and your ring, which can be really good. So any sort of water. You do have to watch out for like the protect the sieges combat coming out because usually you are going to be at 2 Fremen influence. So like if you're thinking about playing for that alliance and that combat comes out, you're all of a sudden going to have another contender for that alliance. So you need to watch out for that one.
Yeah. So just don't commit to the Fremen alliance really early on because this combat could always show off. But if this combat has already shown off, and nobody has worms or whatever, then maybe you can contest the Fremen alliance, and probably it'll go uncontested. Obviously, as Bob said, pick up water is useful. And actually, I'll probably add on pick up Solari. As Bob said, like there's not many outlets for Chani to pick up Solari. So combats that give like Solari early on, or even like later on, allows you Chani to get like Swordmaster or High Council, or even like privilege access, or privilege money, and commanders as well. So picking up combats that have like resources, or specifically Solari resources, are actually pretty good for Chani. Yeah, I think that should be it, right?
Yeah, I would maybe a couple of words with caution for Chani I would give is that a lot of times with Chani your troops can kind of die off in the early combats if you're not really careful because maybe there's a combat intrigue or some unexpected abilities. Maybe someone like bought rapid dropships. So just try to be like very careful in the early combats because oftentimes like if your troops die out without like sort of getting replacements off of combat rewards, it can be hard to keep our combat engine going. If this does happen, usually you can just kind of like play into the Signet and do that like deck building Chani and get your resources back through like reveal effects and through your deck. But it's never like the ideal place to be in.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Bob, for being here and explaining Chani, because obviously there's a lot of these insights that I would not have known just from explaining myself. But I'm glad you were here, and yeah, thank you so much for joining me here on the Consulis channel.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was super fun.
Yeah, but yeah, I'll let you know when the video comes out. But yeah, if you guys liked Bob and liked the video itself, make sure to like and subscribe for more guides. Obviously, there will be more with other leaders, and once Uprising comes out on digital, we'll just do like a base Uprising leader strategy guide as well. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you guys later on another Consulis video. Thank you so much, Bob.
Yeah, thank you.